The rain taps a relentless, uneven rhythm against the greasy glass of the 24-hour diner. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. The overhead fluorescent lights hum with a sickly, faded yellow glow. Maya sits pushed into the furthest corner booth. She is still wearing her teal hospital scrubs. The fabric is heavily crumpled, carrying the faint, metallic scent of iodine and utter defeat. Her fingers dig into the sharp edge of the formica table. Her knuckles are completely white. She is staring at the surface of her cold black coffee, but she does not see her own reflection. Inside her head, a single, continuous, piercing sound is drowning out the quiet murmur of the diner. It is the flatline, the heart monitor from Trauma Room 4, a pediatric patient. 2 agonizing hours of chest compressions until her shoulders burned, until her voice cracked, until the attending doctor finally placed a heavy hand on her shoulder and called the time of death. Maya reaches into her pocket with violently trembling fingers. She pulls out her wired earbuds. She needs white noise. She needs aggressive, meaningless static. She needs anything to break the phantom sound of that monitor tearing through her skull. 2 booths down, Michael watches her. He is an older man, wrapped in a faded, water-stained corduroy jacket. His own coffee mug has been empty for an hour. Michael does not look away politely. He recognizes the rigid posture. He recognizes the hollow, 1,000-yard stare. Most of all, he recognizes the way her hands refuse to stay still. It is a very specific kind of drowning, the kind that only happens on dry land after you have lost a life you were supposed to save. Michael slides out of his booth. He walks over to her table. He does not ask to sit down. He does not introduce himself. He simply reaches into his coat pocket, pulls out a single pink packet of sugar, and places it gently next to her cup. Maya blinks. She is pulled momentarily from the dark void of her own mind. Michael keeps his voice incredibly low. There is absolutely no pity in his tone. Pity is the last thing a broken professional wants to hear. "Sugar will not help you sleep," Michael says softly, "but it might help your hands stop shaking." Maya looks up at him. Her eyes are heavily bloodshot, carrying a thick, viscous exhaustion. She does not look angry. She does not look annoyed by the intrusion. She just looks completely empty. She gives him a fraction of a nod, a silent, heavy acknowledgement. Then she picks up her earbuds. She presses them firmly into her ears. She slides the volume up to the maximum level on her phone. The harsh, loud hiss of static fills her head. She closes her eyes, sealing herself off from him, from the diner, and from the entire world. She is building a fortress of noise. Michael stands there for a second. He does not push. He does not try to offer a generic, comforting platitude. He lets out a slow, quiet sigh. "Yes," Michael mutters, his voice barely a whisper against the sound of the rain outside. "I used to do exactly that too." Maya does not hear him, but her body reacts to the crushing weight of the night. Her fingers slide off the edge of the table and wrap around her paper cup, squeezing it until the cheap cardboard buckles in tears. She stands up abruptly. She grabs her damp coat, desperate to escape. In her blind rush to leave the booth, her sleeve brushes the tabletop. A folded piece of paper, a final notice for her apartment rent, flutters silently to the linoleum floor. Maya pushes through the diner doors, disappearing into the dark, wet street. Michael looks down at the floor. The morning light in the lobby of the apartment building is gray and unforgiving. The air smells heavily of stale tobacco and damp carpet. Maya stands in front of the manager's frosted glass window. She has not slept. She has merely changed out of her scrubs into a faded gray sweater. She grips the edge of the scratched laminate counter, taking a shallow breath to steady her nerves. "Mr. Carter," Maya begins, her voice tight and uncertain. She rummages nervously through her worn canvas bag, pretending to look for something just to avoid his eyes. "I know I'm late. If you could just give me until Friday, my next shift clears and I can—" "Save your breath, Maya," Carter interrupts. He doesn't look up from his desk. He is busy counting a stack of crumpled, deeply stained bills. He licks his thumb, separating a 20 from a 10. Maya freezes. Her hand stops moving inside her bag. "I don't understand," she says cautiously. "Are you evicting me?" Carter finally stops counting. He slides his heavy, leather-bound ledger across the counter. He taps a thick, nicotine-stained finger against her unit number. A harsh red line is drawn directly through her outstanding balance. Next to it, a single word is stamped, "Paid." Maya stares at the red ink. She doesn't feel a rush of relief. She doesn't feel a miraculous weight lift off her shoulders. Instead, a cold, heavy knot forms in the pit of her stomach. When you are completely hollowed out, when you have absolutely nothing left to give, receiving unearned charity feels dangerously like a trap. "Mr. Carter, there has to be a mistake," Maya says, her voice rising with sudden, genuine anxiety. "I didn't pay this, and I don't have anyone in the world who would pay it for me." "Well, the cash sitting in my drawer says otherwise," Carter grunts, leaning back in his squeaky chair. "Old guy, skinny, wearing a beat-up corduroy coat. He just walked in at 6 this morning, dropped the cash, and said, 'Cross the nurse's name off.'" Maya's breath catches. The diner, the sugar packet, the quiet voice. "Did he leave a name?" she asks, her hand suddenly gripping the edge of the counter. "Nope." "Played the mysterious benefactor," Carter smirks, turning back to his paperwork. "Looks like you've got a secret admirer." "I can't accept this," Maya says immediately. The words tumble out, desperate and defensive. "I can't. I don't even know who he is. I can't owe a stranger this kind of money. I wouldn't even know how to look him in the eye and say a proper thank you." Carter sighs, clearly annoyed by her moral panic. "Look, lady, the rent is paid. The ledger is clean. I don't care about your personal dilemmas. But if you really want to track down your fairy godfather to clear your conscience, you might want to start looking around grease pits." Maya looks up, confused. "What do you mean?" Carter points a finger at the stack of money on his desk. Half that cash is smeared with motor oil, and under his ratty coat, he was wearing a work shirt. Had a faded patch on the chest. Old Pete's Auto down on 9th Street. Maya stares at the dirty bills. The knot in her stomach tightens. It is no longer just a financial debt. It is an anchor. And she knows, with total certainty, she is going to drag it all the way to 9th Street. 9th Street is a graveyard of rusted metal and cracked asphalt. Maya pushes open the heavy, corrugated aluminum door of Old Pete's Auto. The air inside is thick and stagnant. It smells sharply of scorched rubber, WD-40, and decades of spilled motor oil. She has walked to 4 different garages this morning. Her feet ache in her cheap sneakers, but she finally spots it. The faded corduroy jacket is draped over a stack of dry-rotted tires in the corner. Michael is leaning deep over the exposed engine block of a rusted truck. His hands and forearms are coated in thick black grease. He doesn't look up as she approaches. Maya stops at the edge of his cluttered workbench. She takes a slow, grounding breath. From her canvas bag, she pulls out a small, crisp white envelope. She places it gently on the greasy metal table. "I'm sorry to interrupt your work," Maya says. Her voice is steady, trying to hold on to her dignity. Michael tightens a bolt. The socket wrench clicks loudly in the cavernous garage. He doesn't turn around. "It's the first installment," Maya continues, tapping the pristine envelope. "It's not much, but I will bring you the exact same amount on the 1st of every month until the rent is fully paid back. I can't accept something like this from a stranger. I need to keep things square." Michael finally stops moving. He drops the heavy wrench onto the table. It lands with a harsh metallic clang, missing her envelope by an inch. He slowly picks up a dirty red rag and begins wiping the grease from his fingers. Then, he turns to face her. His expression is completely unreadable. "Put it away," Michael says. His voice is dry, carrying the rough, abrasive texture of sandpaper. "I'm not a charity foundation, and I certainly didn't do it for you." Maya recoils slightly. The blunt dismissal catches her off guard. Her defensive walls immediately start to rise. "Excuse me?" she whispers, her brow furrowing. Michael steps closer to the workbench. The aggressive, dismissive edge suddenly leaves his posture, replaced by a sudden, crushing weight that seems to pull his shoulders down. "My daughter," Michael says, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. "She was a nurse, too." Maya goes entirely still. Her hand, which was reaching out to take the envelope back, freezes in midair. "She used to come home with that exact same look in her eyes," Michael continues, staring right through Maya, lost in the ghost of a memory. "Bone-tired, shaking, completely hollowed out, and I was too caught up in my own pride and my own rules to see she was drowning. I pushed her until she broke, and then she packed her bags and left." He looks down at the white envelope on the table. He doesn't touch it. "I didn't pay your rent because I'm a good Samaritan, Maya," Michael says, finally looking back up into her eyes. There is a deep, profound sorrow in his gaze, raw and unpolished. "I paid it because last night I saw my daughter sitting in that diner, and I wanted, just for a moment, to pretend I could do what I should have done 10 years ago." Maya's lips part slightly, but no words come out. The envelope on the table suddenly feels entirely meaningless. "I bought a clear conscience," Michael mutters. He turns his back to her, picking up his heavy wrench once again. "I bought one single night of good sleep for a terrible old man. Please, put your money away. Don't take my selfishness away from me." 2 months bleed away. The biting cold of winter slowly gives way to a damp, reluctant spring. Inside old Pete's auto, the heavy scent of burning oil and rusted metal is still suffocating. But in the far corner, resting precariously on a clean milk crate, a beat-up percolator now drips fresh, dark coffee. Maya pushes the corrugated aluminum door open. She isn't wearing her hospital scrubs today. She carries a dented steel thermos in a brown paper bag. She hasn't missed a Tuesday or a Friday in 8 weeks. She has quietly, instinctively, stepped into the space Michael's daughter left behind. She expects to find the old man hunched over his workbench. Instead, a pair of grease-stained work boots sticks out from beneath the chassis of a faded, powder-blue 1970 Ford pickup. There is a sharp clank of a wrench hitting the concrete. A younger man slides out from under the truck on a wooden creeper board. He wipes his forehead with the back of a filthy wrist, smearing a thick, dark line of grease across his brow. "I got the intake valve adjusted," the man calls out, tossing his wrench onto a rolling metal cart. "But seriously, Michael, next time, do not try to deadlift that engine block by yourself. Your back isn't made of structural steel." Michael emerges from the cramped back office, wiping his hands on a faded red rag. He spots Maya and stops. Maya sets the heavy thermos down on the workbench next to the percolator. She raises a skeptical eyebrow, keeping a safe, guarded distance as she looks the stranger up and down. "Are you his new apprentice?" Maya asks. Michael picks up a chipped ceramic mug, pouring himself a cup of coffee. A rare, cynical smirk tugs at the corner of his mouth. "Him? No," Michael grunts, taking a slow sip. "He's some idiot who runs a software company downtown. But for some reason, he prefers crawling under 30-year-old rust buckets and breathing in asbestos dust." Michael gestures toward Maya with his mug. "See, Liam? I told you this nurse was strict. She treats my garage like a maximum security hospital ward." Liam doesn't look offended. He stands up, grabbing a rag to wipe the worst of the oil from his hands. He isn't wearing a tailored suit. He isn't flashing an expensive watch. His gray t-shirt is ruined, and his smile is incredibly grounded. "Thank God," Liam laughs. looking directly at Maya. There is a quiet, genuine respect in his eyes. I was completely out of ideas on how to force him to stop working past 8 o'clock. Looks like we're on the same side. Maya crosses her arms. The defensive wall she usually keeps so high falters, just for a fraction of a second. She is disarmed by his lack of pretense. He only listens if you threaten to throw his socket wrenches in the dumpster, Maya says, her voice softening slightly. Liam smiles. He gestures gently to the powder blue Ford behind him. It was my dad's, Liam explains quietly, noticing her looking at the truck. He passed away last year. The engine is a mechanical nightmare. Everything nowadays is run by microchips and code. Michael is the only guy left in this town who actually knows how to make an engine like this breathe again. Maya looks from Liam to the old, rusted truck, and then to Michael. She sees it clearly now, the shared, silent language of grief. Liam isn't here to play mechanic on the weekends. He is here trying to hold on to a ghost, just like Michael is trying to atone for one. And she is here, bringing hot soup to a stubborn old stranger, desperately trying to remember what it feels like to keep someone alive. Maya turns to her paper bag. She unwraps the foil from a large bowl of stew. "Wash your hands," Maya orders, pointing a finger at Michael. Then she glances sideways at Liam. "Both of you. The soup is getting cold." Liam chuckles, walking toward the utility sink. For the first time in months, the heavy, metallic air of the garage feels a little less suffocating. The harsh, sterile glare of the emergency room is blinding. The faint, rhythmic wail of an ambulance siren echoes through the automatic doors, fading into the chaotic hum of the triage nurses. Maya stands frozen outside Trauma Bay 3. She isn't wearing her scrubs. She is on the other side of the glass today. Footsteps approach rapidly down the linoleum hallway. Liam jogs around the corner. He is still wearing his suit trousers and a partially unbuttoned dress shirt, clearly having walked out in the middle of a board meeting. He holds 2 steaming cups of coffee. He doesn't ask unnecessary questions. He doesn't offer hollow reassurances. Liam stops a few feet away, handing her a cup. He nods toward the heavy glass door. "Go," Liam says quietly, stepping back toward the waiting area benches. "I'll be right out here. Take all the time you need." Maya takes a slow breath, pushing the door open. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor fills the small room. Michael is lying on the narrow hospital bed. The rugged, stubborn mechanic is gone. He looks fragile, the pale hospital gown swallowing his thin frame. A nasal cannula feeds him oxygen. It was a mild stroke, brought on by advancing heart failure. His eyes flutter open as the door clicks shut. He turns his head slowly, wincing at the harsh light. He sees Maya standing at the foot of the bed. Then, his eyes drift past her, catching sight of Liam waiting patiently in the hallway. Michael's jaw tightens. The familiar, abrasive wall of pride slams right back into place. "Tell that CEO out there to take you home, Maya," Michael rasps. His voice is weak, but he forces a sharp, dismissive edge into it. Maya doesn't flinch. She sets her coffee down and pulls a plastic visitor's chair close to his bedside. "I don't need anyone's pity," Michael continues, turning his face toward the blank cinder block wall. "You shouldn't be here. We aren't blood." Maya reaches out. She takes both of his cold, trembling hands and wraps them firmly in her own. "There are millions of blood relatives out there abandoning each other every single day," Maya says. Her voice is incredibly steady. "I am here because I want to be." Michael tries to pull his hands away, but he doesn't have the strength. The harsh facade begins to crack. His chest rises and falls in jagged, uneven breaths. "I'm going to become a burden to you," Michael whispers. He squeezes his eyes tightly shut, but a single tear escapes, cutting a path through the deep wrinkles of his face. "I've got nothing left, Maya. I will only drag you down." Maya leans forward. She reaches up with one hand, gently smoothing the tense, worried lines on his forehead. "Then let me carry it," she says softly. Michael opens his eyes, staring at her through a blur of tears. "Dad," Maya whispers. The word slips out naturally, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken thank yous. "You gave me a roof when I wanted to give up the most. Please, don't take away my chance to be family." Michael stares at her. The monitor beeps steadily in the background. His trembling hands finally stop resisting, surrendering entirely to the warmth of her grip. He lets out a long, shuddering breath, the last brick of his heavy wall finally crumbling to the floor. The hospital corridor outside is dead quiet. It is past midnight. Inside the room, the only sound is the rhythmic, unforgiving beep of the heart monitor. The heavy wooden door clicks open. Liam steps in. He doesn't say a word. He places a brown paper bag smelling of warm diner food on the edge of the small tray table. He catches Maya's eye, gives her a single, understanding nod, and steps back out into the hall. He knows when a room is too small for 3 people. Michael watches the door close. His breathing is shallow, aided by the thin plastic tubes beneath his nose. He looks exhausted, but his eyes carry a strange, feverish clarity. He knows his time is running out. He slowly lifts his right hand. The thin skin is bruised purple from the IV line. His fingers tremble slightly in the dim light. "You know, Maya," Michael rasps, his voice barely breaking the silence of the room. He doesn't look at her. He just stares at his own palm. 20 years ago, the medical journals used to call these the golden hands. Maya sits perfectly still. She doesn't interrupt. She recognizes the heavy, suffocating tone of a confession. "This hand," Michael continues, his voice dropping into a bitter whisper, "skipped a basic coagulation check. Just because I was too confident, too arrogant." He lowers his arm, letting it rest heavily on the stark white sheet. "I was in a hurry," he says, the shame thick and undeniable in his throat. "I had a flight to catch for a medical conference in Chicago. I was receiving an award for surgical excellence. An award." He lets out a dry, hollow laugh that turns into a wet cough. Maya reaches for his water cup, but he waves it away. He needs to say this. "I glanced at the chart," Michael says, his eyes locking onto the ceiling tiles. "I told myself, it's just a routine appendectomy. 10 minutes, in and out. I saw a slight drop in the platelet count. I ignored it. I thought I knew better than the numbers." The heart monitor beeps, a steady, indifferent metronome tracking his greatest regret. "That little boy had a hidden bleeding disorder," Michael whispers. His voice cracks. "When I made the incision, the blood just wouldn't stop. We pushed every product we had. It didn't matter. When the blood wouldn't stop flowing on that operating table, all those titles, the golden hands, the awards, they all became absolute trash." The room falls completely silent. The confession hangs in the air, raw and ugly. It is the darkest truth a doctor can admit. Fatal hubris. Maya does not pull away. She doesn't gasp. She doesn't offer a horrified judgment. As an emergency nurse, she knows exactly how thin the line is between saving a life and ending one. She lets the silence hold for a long beat. Then, she leans forward. She gently takes his bruised, trembling hand and wraps both of her warm hands completely around it. "In our profession, Michael," Maya says softly, her voice steady and completely devoid of judgment, "no one puts on sterile gloves without carrying ghosts." Michael closes his eyes. "You made a terrible mistake." Maya continues, looking directly at his face. "But you have imprisoned yourself in that sentence for 20 years. You stripped away your entire life to pay for it." A single tear slips from the corner of Michael's closed eye. It rolls down the deep crevices of his wrinkled cheek, catching the faint glow of the machines. "But a life sentence from your own conscience, Maya," Michael breathes out, his voice shattering completely. "It doesn't have parole." 4 days pass. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room are gone. Instead, the soft, amber glow of late afternoon sun filters through the half-closed window blinds. Dust motes dance lazily in the quiet air. Michael is no longer tethered to the waking world. The fever has taken hold. His breathing is shallow, ragged, and wet. Maya sits in the same plastic chair, her posture bent with exhaustion, her hands resting over his. In the far corner of the room, leaning against the pale wall, Liam stands perfectly still. He is a silent witness, holding the space, offering his presence as a quiet anchor for the woman he loves. Michael's head shifts on the thin pillow. His eyes flutter open, but they are clouded with the milky, unfocused haze of delirium. He isn't seeing the sterile hospital room. He is seeing a ghost. His frail, bruised hand twitches. He raises it weakly, his fingers grasping at the empty air above Maya's shoulder. Sarah. Michael wheezes. The name tears from his dry throat, fragile and desperate. "I'm sorry. Don't leave me. I was wrong." Maya freezes. Her heart hammers against her ribs. She looks at the delirious old man, then glances back at Liam in the shadows. Liam doesn't move. He just watches her, his eyes filled with a profound, quiet reverence. Maya knows the standard medical protocols. She knows she is supposed to orient the confused patient back to reality, but reality has only ever offered this man a prison cell of guilt. She makes her choice. She steps over the boundary of truth. Maya leans forward, pressing her cheek firmly against his cold, trembling knuckles. She swallows the heavy lump in her throat, holding back a sob, forcing her voice to be remarkably steady and clear. "I'm not going anywhere," Maya whispers, her breath warm against his skin. "I'm right here with you." Michael's chest heaves. He gasps for air, his weak fingers suddenly finding a final surge of strength to grip Maya's hand with terrifying desperation. "Do you?" Michael chokes out, his cloudy eyes searching her face for absolution. "Do you hate me?" A tear slips down Maya's cheek, splashing silently onto the white bedsheet. She doesn't wipe it away. Instead, she brings her free hand up, gently stroking the sparse, gray hair back from his damp forehead. She smiles, a heartbreaking, luminous smile of absolute grace. "No, Dad," Maya says softly, the words sealing the pardon he has waited 2 decades to hear. "I forgive you. It's all over now. You just get a good night's sleep." Michael stares at her for one long, suspended second. Then, the heavy burden of 20 years leaves his body. The deep, agonizing creases on his forehead completely smooth out. His jaw relaxes. His grip on Maya's fingers loosens, his hand settling softly back onto the mattress. His eyes slowly drift shut. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor slows. Then, it stretches. It extends into a single, continuous tone. A flat line. There is no rushing. There is no shouting for a crash cart. In the amber light of the quiet room, the long, unbroken note does not sound like a medical failure. It sounds exactly like peace. 1 year later, the late spring breeze rustles through the heavy branches of the old oak trees. It is a small, quiet wedding, no grand halls, no extravagant displays. In the very first row, there is a single empty wooden folding chair. Liam steps away from the altar for just a moment. He walks over to the empty chair and gently places a small, loose bouquet of wild daisies on the seat. They are the exact same stubborn wildflowers that used to push their way through the cracked concrete outside old Pete's auto. Michael's legacy was not a hidden fortune. It was just a few $1,000s from the sale of the rusted garage. But Maya and Liam didn't put it in a savings account. They used every cent to start a quiet, unnamed tab at the hospital cafeteria, a permanent fund guaranteeing free coffee and hot midnight meals for any exhausted ER nurse working the graveyard shift. Several months pass. The rain taps a familiar rhythm against the greasy glass of the 24-hour diner. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. Maya sits in a booth near the door. She is no longer wearing crumpled scrubs. She looks rested, her face glowing with a quiet peace. Her hand rests gently over the subtle early swell of her pregnancy. She is simply waiting for Liam to pull the car around in the rain. She glances toward the back of the diner. In the furthest corner booth, a young hospital intern is sitting entirely alone. The girl's face is paper white. Her shoulders are rigid. Her hands are locked onto the edge of the formica table, trembling so violently they rattle her empty coffee cup. Maya recognizes that terrible, suffocating silence. She recognizes the heavy, invisible weight of a lost patient. Maya stands up. She walks softly across the faded linoleum floor. She doesn't introduce herself. She doesn't ask what happened. She simply picks up a single pink packet of sugar from a nearby counter and places it gently on the table in front of the young woman. The intern flinches, looking up with wide, panicked, exhausted eyes. "Sugar won't help you sleep," Maya says softly. The intern blinks, her breathing jagged and uneven. "Excuse me?" Maya smiles. It is not a pitying smile. It is a smile of deep, unshakable understanding. It is a lifeline thrown into the dark. "But it might help your hands steady a bit," Maya says gently. "Drink up. I promise you, tomorrow will be better." Maya doesn't wait for a thank you. She turns and walks toward the exit, the bell above the door chiming softly as she pushes it open. Through the diner window, Liam is waiting on the wet pavement. He holds a large black umbrella against the rain. As Maya steps outside into the cold air, he smiles warmly, opening the car door for her. Inside the quiet diner, the young intern looks down at the pink packet of sugar. Slowly, her white-knuckled grip on the table begins to loosen. She picks it up. Her ragged breathing finally begins to steady. Looking back at Maya and Michael's journey, I keep wrestling with one unsettling question. If I were Maya, completely hollowed out by a brutal night shift, would I have really scoured every rusted garage in town just to find him? When we hit the absolute rock bottom of emotional exhaustion, our primal survival instincts usually tell us to just grab the life preserver and quietly walk away. It is almost always easier to avoid any further human complications. It reminds me of a time when I hit my own worst bout of professional burnout, operating purely on fumes and fraying nerves. One late evening, an anonymous colleague quietly organized the chaotic, overwhelming mountain of paperwork on my desk and left a steaming cup of tea by my keyboard. I never found out who it was. But that absolute anonymity was a profound gift in itself. It didn't demand any forced gratitude, but it fundamentally shifted my perspective, making me start looking at everyone around me with just a little more grace. Maya could have chosen that route, accepting the help, treating it like a quiet miracle, and moving on. But she chose the much harder path. She chose to see Michael through all his scars and his guilt, and decided to become family to a complete stranger. What about you? If you were in Maya's shoes, would you treat that paid invoice as a stroke of random luck and continue with your life? Or would you turn back, tear down those walls, and hold space for a shattered soul? Let me know your choice in the comments below. Every decision comes with a cost, and there is no completely wrong answer here. If today's story gave you something to think about, don't forget to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. We'll see you in the next one, where we continue to explore the most authentic, hidden corners of the human experience. Have a peaceful night.